What's going on, guys? So in this video, I'm going to show you how to populate the DCP board for the FDL3 full auto tail. So in this video, we're going to populate the DCP board. If you're looking at this and wondering, well, how do I build this? I put a link in the description. This is going to be a multi-part series to build the FDL3, and this is the 40 no's. So if you're interested in that, that video will include installing the motors. It also has the population of the power board. So very, very long video, very inclusive video. If you're interested in building one of these, I mean, from the ground up, literally from populating boards to cutting your own wires, soldering, all that. And if you can't solder, I try to go into it as in depth as I can so that the novice can follow along and actually solder parts. So definitely check that video out if this is your first time. If not, let's go ahead and get this guy built. So I'm going to get you a closer look. I'm going to put this up in the air here, and I'm going to go over the parts and the part numbers as I build it, just so that there's no confusion, because there are quite a few parts that go to this. So let's just get right into it. So I'm going to be holding this in place with the quad hands, and whenever populating a board like this, you always want to start with the smaller components first. And I say that mostly because many of you might not have the quad hands, and if you go and put the taller stuff, if you flip the board over to solder it, the smaller stuff can fall out. So by starting with the smaller stuff, you can put that flat on the ground. But because I use this, I don't have that issue, but I'm still going to start with the smaller of the components. So with that, let me get you on a closer lens and let's go. Let's start up here in the top right corner. We need a 1K resistor. So the one that we want here is the CF14JT1K00. So as we can see here, this is a resistance of 1K and 1K. The colors on this are gold, red, looks like black, brown. And to do this, I just bend the edges just like this. You don't need to go crazy. These are just like that. So with the resistor, it doesn't matter if you put it in like this or like this, the current will flow either way. So for this, I'm going to put the gold to the left and just pop that right there. That's our 1K. Now I'm pushing this all the way to the board like that, and then I'm going to splay these legs out left and right. I'm going to solder this from the back. So what I'm going to do is place all these and then solder them all at once. So next we need a 4.7K resistor. That is CF1JT4K70, and resistance is 4.7K. And the colors on this are gold, red, purple, and yellow. And I'm going to put the gold to the left, and again, it doesn't matter what direction that goes. Push that all the way down until it touches the board, and then splay out the ends just like that. And then they will shift around a little bit, but once you get one side soldered, they're good. So the next one we want is the 100K resistor. That is a CF14JT100K CT, and as we can see, resistance of 100K. If you're interested in the color, it is gold, yellow, black, brown. And just fold the edges. Again, I'm putting the gold to the left, and it doesn't matter. Lay the legs out left and right, just like that. Okay, now we need 4 10K resistors. So one thing with the bill of materials, you want to be very careful and not make the same mistake that I did in ordering. I just went and expected the bill of materials to be proper. It is not. The bill of materials will tell you that you want 4 4K resistors. That is not true. You want 4 10K resistors. And the other problem with the bill of materials is it tells you you need 1 10K resistor when in fact you need 1 4.7K resistor. So just pay very close attention to that. I don't know why that is. I don't have editing capabilities for that. I'll have to message the manufacturer of the FDL3, but just know that that's an issue. We don't want the 4.7K resistors in the 10K slots. So know that's a thing. Know for the rest of this video, I'm going to skip over those, but if you need to know how to install those, one goes right there. One goes right there, one goes right there, and one goes right there. They install the same way as these. And again, direction doesn't matter. So in the interest of continuing this video, I'm gonna go ahead and finish the rest of this board. And you're gonna go ahead and do those 10K resistors. But let's press on and solder these in place and go from there. So what I'm gonna do here is flip this board over, and we're going to solder these from the back. And to solder that with, I'm going to use, this is the FM 2027 soldering iron, and I'm going to use this is a chisel tip. This is a T15 D12 chisel tip. And this is driven by the FX951 from Hacko, a very, very good soldering iron. If you're interested in this soldering iron, I have a link to it right there. A video that I put up of me getting this for the first time. Okay, so clean off the soldering tip. All right, so I'm just gonna apply a little bit of heat, tap the iron a little bit, and then tap the pad. Just like that. That's all it takes to solder these guys. Super easy. Tap the iron, tap the pad. And what you're doing by tapping the iron is just getting a little bit of solder on that in order to transfer the heat a little easier. And we're just going to solder those right there. And go ahead and check your solder joints. Make sure none of those are going to touch one another. Flip it over and then make sure all your resistors are seating exactly where you want them. And that seems to be the case. Also make sure that the solder comes up at least to the flat section of the board, and all that does. So now we can flip these up and cut them off. And all those are flush. So the next part that we're going to install is the diode, and if you're interested in the part number, it is the UF407CT. And unlike the resistors, this does have a certain polarity to it. This has the anode and the cathode. So the cathode is marked with the red, and in this case you can see we're going to put the cathode facing down. So this is going to be the same thing here. We're going to bend these just like this. And we're going to place this guy right in here. And again, I'm going to place this all the way seated, and then flip these arms left and right. Same thing here. I'm gonna flip them there. This is not my cleanest of jobs. Normally I'd like to do a nice little bend like here on the left, but this is adequate. So what we're gonna do here is solder this on the back, just like we did before. just like that. Go ahead and check that the solder come through on the other side. And if it's to your liking, go ahead and cut these short. Now with something like this, they say you want to work in a static-free environment. That means don't go blowing up balloons and rubbing them in your hair before you do something like this. So the next thing I'm going to do is install the transistor, which is going to go right there. And that is part number 2N4401. And again, these are static sensitive, so we want to be fairly careful with them. So when dealing with a transistor such as this, you'll notice there's a flat side. The flat side we're going to put just as marked. So what we're going to do is take this center pin and pull it back just a bit, and take these the front outer right and left two and bring them forward just a little bit. Go ahead and place that right inside. As you can see, I got the forward 2 pins just like that. And you can clean up this bend a little bit better, but there's our flat side there. So I'm bringing the right and left pin a little bit forward, and then this center pin a little bit backwards, and that's going to go in like this. So be kind of careful, because these legs are aluminum and it's not going to seat all the way down to the board, but try to get it as mine's about 1/16 of an inch off. The center leg kind of moved out of the way for me. So once you get that in place, just go ahead and solder those. You want to be careful not to bridge these, because they are pretty close together. By now, if you're following along with my soldering, you're not going to have that problem. Just like that. And we want to make sure that we didn't bridge anything at the top. And we're looking pretty good. This is one of the advantages to having a macro lens, is I can see this through the lens better than I can looking directly at it. And I can see that I did not bridge any connections. So that's that. If you're happy with the placement, go ahead and cut the legs off. So the next thing that we're going to do is install the P-channel Mosfet, and be careful, there is a P-channel and an N-channel. I've gone ahead and marked the difference. So the P-channel Mosfet is the IRFU5505PBF. So the N-channel one is the IRLU3410PBF. So there is a difference between the two. And I've marked them accordingly. So we're going to install the P channel first. That's the one in the center here. And again, this is another static shielded bag, so no balloons or carpets or what have you, or humid areas like the one I'm in. Okay, so these guys come in a little foam thing like this. And you can see it's got a aluminum back and then kind of a plastic coated front. We want the aluminum back facing this solid white line there. So we're just going to pull this guy out and place this directly into those 3 holes. Now you might have to splay these out just a little bit. It does seem to be the case here. You don't need to get crazy, just enough to fit it in. And then there's little nubs right there. That's as far as this will go down. So place that in there. And then this guy, we're going to bend slightly. And let me show you what I mean by slightly. That's not quite, maybe, that's about a 45-degree angle. And that's similar height to this guy here. So let's go ahead and solder that in place. And then we will do the other one right next to it. So what I'm doing here is applying solder in between the leg and the iron, and then going to the back side and then feeding solder in to the heat. Just like that. Super easy. Great soldering joints. And then once you're done with that, go ahead and remove the legs. That's one. Now we want our N channel. And our N channel, as stated before, is the IRLU3410PBF. And for whatever reason, this one didn't come with the foam. And this is going to be the same thing here. We've got the plastic is going to go forwards, and then this aluminum block here is going to go right up against this solid white, the solid white line there. And we're going to spread those legs just a little bit because it's fun. And once that's pressed in place, again, we're going to go roughly about a 45-degree angle with these guys. And we can take that out, just like that, and just like that. And let your OCD bother you as much or as little as you care. Okay, so once you get that set, go ahead and solder this in place. Now, something like this, if you don't want to be bending these legs, you can just solder one leg, adjust your piece with a little bit of heat, and then solder the remainings. I'm not going to do that. It's fairly close to where I want it to be, so a little bit of a nudge is not going to hurt. So there you go. That's soldered in place. As you can see, the solder comes up the other side. Because the way solder works is, if you don't already know, it travels to heat, but it also is affected by gravity. So by soldering down from the top like this, you're allowing the solder to both travel to the iron, and if you're holding it up against the work, it will travel through the work to the iron, and it will also go down through the through hole and complete that soldering, complete that solder joint due to gravity. And then we cut off our ends just like that. All right, the next thing that we're gonna do is go ahead and grab your pins from earlier. So we're gonna want to cut 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 pairs of 2 and 1 pair of 3. These guys are easily cut with just a pair of end dikes. These are, if you're interested, these are the CHP 170 from Hacko. These are a great nippers. So if you notice when cutting these, the plastic is kind of nipped in between, and just cut along that line. So again, we want 2, 3, 4, 5 pairs of 2. I'm gonna go ahead and clip those. So now with these guys, we're going to solder them from the back, just like that, so that these are sticking out. You want the longer end sticking out like this, because what we're going to do is going to be plugging things to them. So to do this, I am going to employ the help of a third arm to hold it in place just like that, and then we're going to solder from the front. And with these, it's best to solder one and then check to make sure that it's sitting flush before you go and solder the remaining ones. And the reason for that is because they will move. In this case, that one's good. So mine are set exactly where I want. I'm gonna hold everything again and solder the other 2. Okay, so that is the section of 3. Now we want a section of 2 for the trigger. This is for your ESC. There's your trigger. We're going to put this right here. And for these double ones, this iron can reach across both pads, so I'm just going to solder them right in place. We do want to make sure that we are not bridging these two together. And then we want the pusher, the front pusher. These are the switch. These are the switches right here. These are the front pusher switch, and that's the rear pusher switch. So we're gonna do, let's actually do the rear pusher switch first because it's kind of inside of the board. Hold that in place, just like that. Okay, so that's the rear pusher board. And then we're going to do the front pusher board. Pop that guy right there. And hold it in place. Okay, once you're done soldering that, flip it over and make sure that your pins are aligned. Now, again, it might be beneficial just to solder one, position it, and then come back and solder the other one. The other thing that we want to make sure is when you heat these up, this plastic stuff kind of expands. So these pins can be pushed down. So know that some of them could possibly, like this one here, is pushed down a little bit. That shouldn't be a problem. But for those of you with OCD that want them all similar, it may bug you, but this is acceptable. Okay, so once we're set with those four, we're gonna come over here to the battery and the MOT, and we're gonna place these just the same as before. These are gonna be placed from the bottom, just like this. Same thing here. If you so choose, we can solder one, come back to it, and then solder the other one, just to make sure that they are placed the way we want them. Now, these are not something that you're going to want to solder by hand holding. You're definitely not going to want to do that. These get hot, and the heat travels through the board really quickly, so you will burn yourself. So as you can see, if we place them on their own like that, they might shift. So if those are placed where you want them, go ahead and solder the other pin. And then just give one final check that they are where you want them. Okay, so going through my parts, I do have one of the 10K resistors. This is the proper one, the CF14JT10K0CT. So for this, we should have 4 of them, and I only have 1. So just know that the, as stated earlier, the parts list is wrong. So for this guy, as you can see, the colors on it are gold, orange, black, and brown. And this guy we're gonna put right here. And I'm gonna do the same thing with it, is put the gold to the left, and it doesn't matter, so you do as you choose. And once we get it in place, I'm gonna solder it. So again, I should have 3 more of these, and I do not. So just know when you're putting yours together, we need one there, and one there as well. Just the same as we're doing these, except they're all going to be the 10K resistor that I'm installing now. So there's a reason I'm leaving it blank. There's one other thing I'm leaving blank, and I'll get into that. But let's get this guy landed first. Okay, so we want to check to see how that is sitting. It is good, so we can clip off these legs. All right, so that's my resistors there. Again, I can't emphasize this enough. You need 3 more of those right here. 1, 2, 3. This NEL, we're not going to do anything with. We're going to leave that blank. So your board is just going to have 3 more resistors right there. So the final step here, we're going to install this 10-pin rail. And again, you guys are going to have installed 3 resistors here, 10K. So this 10-pin pin header is part number S7008ND. Okay, so when installing this, we're going to install this from the top so that the ports are sticking up from the top. And we're only going to solder 1 pin. And the reason we're going to solder 1 pin, because if this is seated somehow like this, and you solder all 10 pins, without a hot air rework station, you're never going to get this to seat because your soldering iron can probably only reach 3 pins at a time. So what we're going to do is we're going to hold this in place with one of our arms, and then we're going to hold the board in place with another arm. We're going to hold the board in place with another arm, just like that. We're going to position where we want it nice and flush. And again, we're going to only solder one of these pins on the end, preferably. Wait for our iron to heat up. Okay, so 1 pin. We're going to take this whole thing apart and check to make sure, as you can see, it's not seated exactly. Well, it's close. Many of you will call it good, not me. So actually, that's just because it's loose. So as you can see here, this pin here is pushed all the way down and in, so that's good. We are not quite straight. So what I'm going to do now is take my soldering iron, and with my fingers here, I'm just going to heat this up and put it in the direction that I want it. So right there is right where I want it. Now that I've got that in place, I'm going to flip this board over and solder this left pin. And the same thing, I'm going to hold this in place. Actually, for this, I'm going to hold it with 1, and it should be good. Let me get this in camera for you guys. Right there, perfect. Okay, so we're going to solder this left one, and just before I remove heat, I'm going to take this and press it into the board, just like that. Give it a second. Sorry for the focus, I'll fix that. And the reason we're doing, so the reason that I pressed this in is because I wanted this board to sit flush, just like that. And I held it there for a second for the heat to dissipate, and that locked it in place. So that's good. Now what we're going to do is we're going to solder this, and I'm going to solder it by bouncing around. We want to make sure that we hit each and every pin. The reason I'm going to bounce around is so that we don't leave any residual heat and this board doesn't shift while we're soldering this. So I'm just going to go back and forth. Left pin, right pin, left pin, right pin. And you can go all the way across. This is just the way that I like to do it. And this keeps the heat from allowing this to come out while you're doing this, because if this thing is not lined up now, there's no way I have to move it. Maybe you guys have a rework station. So there's that installed. Perfect. And it's up to you if you want to go through and cut these pins so that they're not quite sticking up like that. Totally up to you. I'm gonna go and do that. Okay, so this is the completed DCP board. Here's the back of it. As you can see, we have 2, 2, 3, 2, 2, and 2 pins sticking up for our wiring. And on the top here, we will have everything populated except for that NEO. Again, for like the third time, you guys are gonna have 3 of this same bottom resistor. This guy right here, that one right here. Okay, you're gonna have 3 more of these right here done the same configuration as these guys here. So that's gold, orange, black, and brown. Don't forget these. I don't have them, so don't forget those. This is your last reminder. Okay, I don't know if you can tell, but my hands are frozen. It's about 20 degrees out here in this garage, Fahrenheit. So if there's any wonder why I'm breaking this up into multiple videos, is because I can only handle so much time out here. And if you see a 20-minute video, that means I've been out here for probably an hour. So that's going to complete this video. That's the look at the DCP, completely populated except for these 3 10K resistors that you guys are going to have in yours. So in the next video, I'm going to populate the control board, and that'll probably be a video on its own as well, because I bet you that's going to turn into a half-hour video plus, because there are a lot of components that go onto that. Yeah, so if you guys enjoyed this video, go ahead and click that thumbs up button. If you think I have earned it, I have started a Patreon page. The link for that is below. If you want to support this channel, you can go ahead and do it. If you don't, that's cool too. It's just some of you want a way to support this channel. That's a way to do it. And if you haven't done it already, go ahead and punch that subscribe button, because you only get to do it once, and it's fun. And I'll catch you later. Peace.